Disney animator Philo Barnhart, who created The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Secret of NIMH, and so many more. Today, we're going to be answering your questions, and I am so excited that you are here joining us live. If you are joining us live, get into my chat box and start dropping your questions. We're going to be welcoming Philo on in just a minute. But before we jump in, I've got some breaking Toon World news for you. So if you are fans of My Deepest Secret, that came back earlier this week from its hiatus for season 2. Speaking of season 2, we are getting a brand new season of Edith coming back July 20th. We've also learned that earlier this week, a part in the Korean drama True Beauty has been offered to one of our fan favorites. He's in negotiations right now, so nothing is confirmed, but we're pretty excited about this, and we want to hear from you. If you are loving on it, go ahead and get into my comments right now and tell me if they've made the right choice. We've also learned that Jackson's Diary, which is a drama supernatural, is actually going to be moved over to original. So if you are reading that one is about to go original. And finally, this week, we've learned that Webtoon has created a brand new Greenlight program where they're letting you help decide which stories are going to get moved over to original next. Lots of details on the app. If you need more, make sure you go check it out. And if you're loving on this, we also have some cool things happening for you here at Toon Ladies as well, because this week we launched our very first group cosplay. It does come out later this week, and we are working together to take pictures in our own individual homes, send them all to me, and I'm photoshopping us all together to be the cast of one series every single week. You can get more details on how to participate at discord.toonladies.com for more of the fun. And if you know all the breaking Toon World news, we need you on our team. Come on over to our reporter page by going to toonladies.com/join the team for more information on how you can get involved and drop your reports over on our Discord so that you can be featured, or your news can be featured here on the talk show, on our newsletter, and on the podcast every single week. Speaking of the podcast, earlier this week we had a great episode with Ingrid Ochoa, author of The Kiss Bet. She talked all about how to create believable high school settings inside of webcomics. If you did not check it out, you 100% want to make sure you're listening to this, because she told us if she had a tutor like Oliver, and you do not want to miss the answer. Speaking of the podcast, we do have a great episode coming up this week with Loopy Cut of Blood Ink. We're talking all about technology in tunes, and you do not want to miss this one. And we had some fabulous people joining us this week over on our YouTube page. People are excited for all the fun things happening in the Toon World and on Toon Ladies. We had love for our interview with Mongi from a few weeks ago. Jenna says she loves the newsletter because there's a little something for everyone, and Jenna even took the opportunity to call me out this week for all the fun we were having over on Toon Ladies. If you guys want to be featured, leave some comments here on our YouTube page, because we would love to shout you all out while we are doing our live show every single Sunday. All right, friends. We are about to bring on a dear friend of mine. He is known for his work on The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. He worked on Secret of NIMH, so many good things, and I cannot wait to introduce you. I know, I see each and every one of you guys in the comments. You are so excited for this one. We're going to be hanging out with the fabulous Philo Barnhart today, and we're going to answer all of your questions. Philo, my friend, how are you?
Well, I'm doing all right now. Good evening.
I am so excited to hang out with you. You and I have not been able to hang out since Mermagicon a couple of months ago, and boy, have you been busy traveling and doing all sorts of amazing things.
Yes, indeed.
Can you tell everybody?
Japan?
Yeah. Japan,
and then right after that was Dubai in United Arab Emirates.
And
so
I had so much fun looking through your photos.
Yeah, I didn't get all that many in Arabia, but maybe if they have me back, I'll get some more.
For sure. I watch your travels on your Facebook page, and I just live vicariously through you.
Yeah, this is the most traveling I've done in my entire life, so it's been a lot of fun.
Now's the time. Now is the time.
It comes with experience and with age. You know, all the projects I did, that was my young life. This is my older life. Now I get to enjoy the fruits of what I did back then, going all over the world. So
Which I
yeah.
absolutely love. You kind of get the best of both worlds with that one. So let's introduce you formally. Tell us who you are and all the fabulous projects you've worked on.
Oh, well, if you haven't heard already, my name is Philo Barnhart, and born and raised in California, and grew up in Burbank, about 5 blocks from Disney Studio, which is where my parents met in 1944. My mother actually started there in 1942, and my father was serving in World War II and had to be discharged honorably because he was found sleepwalking where he was stationed, and he was furious, but because he wanted to serve, a lot of people did. The chips were down in the world, and you did what you could. But anyway, I'm digressing. Anyway, I came along in 1957 and knew I wanted to be an artist from the start. I started drawing in my crib around the age of 2, and just kept doing it all through school and all my young life. And got my first chance to be in the industry at Hanna-Barbera in 1977. And my father was working in layout there by that time, and my mother was downstairs in ink and paint. So, so there I was starting at Hanna-Barbera and doing things like Godzilla and Super Friends. And uh, after that, it was Star Trek: The Motion Picture, my one and only effects venture. And that was a lot of fun. It was a dream come true for me because I was working with two people that I very much admired, and that was Douglas Trumbull and I'm gonna blank out now.
I do that all the time.
John Dykstra. Oh my gosh, this is old age for me. John Dykstra, you may remember, was the supervisor on the effects for the very first Star Wars. And Douglas Trumbull was the head of effects, along with another gentleman on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and also made two of his own films, Silent Running and uh, Brainstorm, which was Natalie Wood's last movie. But it was a thrill to work with him, and Robert Wise was our director, and just really amazing. And everything was hand done because there were no computer graphics to use then. So what you're seeing is computer screens on board the Enterprise, and also the Klingon vessel is actually animation that we did on the camera stand using
Wow.
graphics and things. And we did a lot of organic type of animation too, electrical discharges and cloud layers and things like that. So it was a lot of fun, but there was no computer graphics yet. That didn't start until 1989, and with 3 different movies: Young Sherlock Holmes, The Abyss, and Batman, Tim Burton's version of Batman. So that's when CG started to infiltrate into the movie. Now, of course, Disney animation is all digital. There's no more hand drawn. But speaking of hand drawn, right after that in 1980, I joined the very brand new staff of Don Bluth Studio to make The Secret of NIMH. And after that was done, we went on to create the video games that were groundbreaking: Dragon's Lair and Dragon's Lair 2 and Space Ace. I don't know what those are, just look them up online sometime. They came out starting in 1983. So NIMH was in 82. So but the game production went a lot faster because the action is very fast paced in a video game, as you all know. So
Sure.
directly after that, I went to Disney again, or Disney for the first time actually, and worked on Winnie the Pooh and a Day for Yore. Then right on to uh, the Black Cauldron, and I actually joined them later. I was on the last 9 months of the film, even though they'd been spending 10 years on it already. So I was on the tail end of that one, and that was fun to be involved with. It's getting more notoriety now. And then right after that, back to Hanna-Barbera for a while, and did more Smurfs and a little show called The Pawpaws, and one called Galtar and the Golden Lance, which was kind of like a sword and sorcery type thing.
Okay.
Did a lot of things. I couldn't begin to remember now, but right after that, it was right into Filmation. That was probably in '86, and they were starting up their feature film department again. It's a whole other building separate from the TV production. So we were just down the street from them. They were making Brave Star and not Culture. That was Hanna-Barbera. The one with the He-Man, of course. I have the power. They were making He-Man and Brave Star and some other things still, while we were making Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. Following year, we made a Snow White sequel called Happily Ever After.
Which I loved that movie.
And then we closed our doors. And directly, I was the last person there. I was doing animation repair work. So they kept me on it was a ghost town. It was so weird to be working in an empty studio. But everyone was already laid off. And my friend Mike Peraza called me from Disney and says, "Hey, I'm the art director on this upcoming Little Mermaid. John and Ron did a gong show type of presentation for, the head of the studio, and they won the contract to do Little Mermaid. So I went in to see Ron and John at a lunchtime." I had to drive from Van Nuys all the way to Burbank at lunchtime to meet with them, and the end result was I left Filmation on a Friday, and Monday, October 29th, I started on Little Mermaid in 1987. So it's funny how life works. And from then on, I was involved with pretty much everything Disney did from '87 forward, except for maybe Roger Rabbit, because they were doing that. By the time I got on Mermaid, they were already working on that. So it took some time to do because they were mixing live action with animation.
Sure.
Required more drawings. So
Yeah.
Real life footage is what you call ones. There's one frame for one little bit of movement.
Right.
When we're animating straight ahead without any live action, we can shoot things twice. We can shoot every drawing twice. For 1 second, that's 24 frames of film. What we can do is do 12 drawings to make the motion and shoot every one of them twice. There's our 24. So that's how it works. But that still gives you some idea of how labor intensive the process is.
Right. Oh, for
It's not that bad in a television production because that is a more limited form of animation. In fact, it's called limited animation. But it involves cycling things over and over again, like heads. You might see the characters' heads bobbing like this, and their mouth moving and their eyes blinking. Well, that's all separate heads and separate eyes and separate mouths, and you have to keep track of all that. So everything's listed on this exposure sheet, It can be nerve-wracking. It's actually easier for me to draw straight ahead in full animation than it is to do limited. I don't know how that worked out, but kind of true. So
interesting.
yeah, but the Beauty and the Beast was my last one for the Disney company, and by then I was doing it in Florida. We were working simultaneously from our studio there with California, and I left about 2/3 of the way through production to return to California and work in consumer products for the company. So as much as I hated to leave animation, I was ready to have a more relaxed pace, even though it wasn't really relaxed. When you're dealing with countless products and licensees, you have to meet with them every week. I think the most fun I had was meeting with Mattel Toys because I got to do all the dolls and things. Literally all the dolls for Mermaid in 1995, 6, 7. 1997 when we re-released Little Mermaid. I
Wow.
was a pretty busy boy.
I'm positive I have some of those dolls
Lots of
too.
fun toys and things, apparel, toys, home electronics, everything you can think of.
Yeah.
We made and slap a Disney character on it. So
That's so funny. And the first time you and I met, someone had actually brought a book and it was your work, which was so cool.
oh,
I actually recently found some of my Little Mermaid gear. I'm going to have to run it by you to see if you were the one that created it.
was that the little chunky book from Spain?
Yes. Yep. That's
Yeah,
the one.
I have that one here. She sent me a copy of it.
That's so sweet. I love it.
Shall I get it? It's right behind me.
If you got it, please grab it.
Let me get it.
And friends, if you're joining us live, we are about to get to your questions. So feel free to jump into my chat box and drop those. I see all the love coming in and all the great questions. We're going to get through as many as possible. But first, we're going to show you something pretty dang cool. And I happen to have a little bit of a surprise for everyone that we're going to get to in just a little bit. Oh, we got some good questions coming in. I'm excited to get the answers to some of these.
What we like that. You like it. Bring it on.
Oh, yes. It's going to be so much fun. So let's see. I'm just going to start going through some of these questions, and then we're going to take a look at the most adorable book.
I'm a coming.
Fantastic. Did you find it?
Yeah. Yep.
Good. Oh, I'm so excited. All right. So 2 years ago, we were at Mermagicon in Washington, D.C. It's a big mermaid convention on the East Coast. And Philo and I were doing a live broadcast interview when a lovely woman walked up with this book to get Philo to sign it. And it turns out it was all of his artwork.
There we go.
Perfect. Oh, I love it.
I, of course, immediately went to the one that was my favorite one to do in the entire book, and it's popped up in a number of places.
Yes. Hold it up just a little higher. There we go.
Oh, I have to go over a little
Other
more.
side. There we go. Perfect.
Yes. There we go.
I love that one. That whole scene, I love it.
She's saying 3 days. You got that? 3 days. He has to kiss you. But if he doesn't, you'll return to being a mermaid and you'll belong to me.
Oh, I always love when you do the lines and when you sing. My friends,
She was my first assignment on the film. Yeah.
which is so much fun.
Long before Ariel came along for me. But I was actually hired to do Ariel, but I ended up having to wait for Dan Haskett to join us from New York. So she looks suitably ticked off here, doesn't she?
She does.
Anyway, our credits aren't on here anymore. This is way down the road. But when the book came out originally, the watercolorist that did the paintings over my drawings, and myself, of course, we got credits. So
Sure. Oh, that's so fun.
What a thrill to see that book. You know, it was so thoughtful of her to bring it over.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. We meet so many good people at these mermaid conventions.
Oh, I agree. They are the most fun. Friends, if you have not been to a mermaid convention, get yourself there because it is worth it.
Generous and friendly and fun.
It is so much fun. All right. I think it's time for us to get into some questions because they are coming in fast and furious. So I am going to scroll up and I'm going to take a look at some of these great... Oh, we're even losing some questions because they're coming in so fast, friends. Keep them coming in. This is fantastic. TM Sharky Nerd is in our comments and would like to know, what was your favorite part of working on The Rescuers Down Under? I'm a fan of both of the movies.
Oh, well, the humor that was in the film was a great deal of fun. I got to do a lot of McLeish with his pet cohort, Joanna, the iguana, and she was just so hysterical, and she was a lot of fun to draw. The characters, all of them, were a delight to draw. finally got a chance to draw Bianca and Bernard, of course, and Jake, the little kangaroo mouse
Yes.
character. But Cleesh and Joanna were my favorites by far, and they were the ones I got to do the most. So I did a lot of
Oh,
those scenes. I did a lot of those scenes with Alex Cooper Schmidt, who's this crazy man from Russia. So he's a real character. I mean, literally, he is a human cartoon. But we had a ball doing that character.
It sounds like so much fun. I love your stories.
Joanna, did you touch my eggs, Joanna? And then the dungeon animal sequence, I really enjoyed doing that with Frank, the frilled lizard.
Yes.
Waltzing Matilda, purse. Oh! Oh, and the albatross was a lot of fun too, but not so much him, but the little mice that were trying to realign his spine. They had him tied up and hanging from the. They were about to do surgery on him, and of course that was the great John Candy, right?
Yes.
So yeah.
Devin is in the comments and would like to know who's more fun to draw or create, the villains or the heroes?
Well, I tend to side with the villains because they are characters that really enjoy their work. I tend to like people. Isn't that an awful answer? But of course, I loved Ariel. I love Ariel. I even love Filmation's Snow White. When there's a heroine that has qualities that I admire, then yeah, I love the characters. But I just love the villains because they just have so much fun being bad.
They do.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the villains. Villains are fun.
My dad spent 6 years working on Maleficent, so he was a big fan of villains, villainesses. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the style of the film was so difficult to draw in. They were lucky if they got 3 good drawings done a day.
Right.
And they were expected to get 8 if they could. That's what we were expected to get too, and more if we could. So I would get more than 16 done a day as we were under pressure to get it done in a year and a half, The Little Mermaid.
Right.
Because that was the mandate from the studio. If we didn't get it done in 18 months, as opposed to 3 or 4 years, then they were going to have to close down the department. So we worked extra hard. We hired on about 30 more people, found it in our budget, and we worked our buns off. We were served meals morning, noon, and night to get that film done. And it turned everything around, as you all know, because after Mermaid, that paved the way for all the other wonderful movies that came out.
And I can't thank you enough for that because I lived on that growing up.
Yeah. Well, I thrived on it too.
We've got some fabulous people hanging out in the comments. Loopy Cut is so excited to see you. You're awesome. We are getting lots of love in the questions in the comments, and I saw one earlier I did want to ask, so I pulled up my phone. So Marissa would like to know, how much freedom did you get for your own input and ideas when you did movies or scenes, or were there specific moments that stood out for you within that process?
It's very rare that you need to come up with a piece of business. Sometimes people use real models, real people, I should say, to perform the part. On screen, we had Sherry Stoner. She was wonderful, and she was very inventive with the character Ariel. And she came up with little idiosyncrasies and bits of movement that we didn't think of ourselves. And a lot of animators have never studied acting. I did, so I understood performance and nuance and things like that. But a lot of your young people today don't even study acting, and I think it's a good idea if you're going to go in an animation of any kind. Learn some performance on your own. Act out things on your own, or have somebody come and do it for you. That's very inventive. Ursula was also acted out by Max Kirby, who was Rob Minkoff's friend at the time we were starting Ursula. So we brought him in and filmed him. He was a comedian, improvisational on stage person. So there's that, and so that helps us come up with pieces of business that we wouldn't have thought of. Also, we had to take pantomime classes
Oh,
about halfway through the film because we were getting to the part where she doesn't have her voice anymore, and we needed
right.
to discover how to portray that without any, dialogue. How to really over exaggerate things, which is what pantomime is. You're creating a story without any dialogue or sound of any kind.
Yeah.
So we spent 6 hours, 3 hours one night on the soundstage at Disney Studio, and another three the next night. And everyone was encouraged to come, and everyone that did come gained a lot of good information. As far as how the characters are going to look, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, you can have a lot more input in that case. I had a lot to do with how her hair was shaped. So Ariel's hair, I mean.
Yeah.
And ultimately her seashell brassiere too. That came about because Jeffrey Katzenberg saw the first dailies of Ariel in her first chest arrangement, which was seashell pasties. And
Not quite Disney there.
my friend had put separate timing charts on each side, right and left, to move them independently as if they were in an underwater current. And that didn't fly with Jeffrey. He was 10 shades of red when he came out of dailies that Friday. So he immediately went into the directors, and I could hear their voices raising because we were still out in the hallway. We hadn't moved into our half of the building yet. We'd started life in some trailers that were across from the building where Oliver and Company was being finished. And they moved everyone to one half of the building so that we could start moving over there. And I was still in the hallway with my desk, just by the director's room. It was like something I don't want to do. But then I hear the door, the voices faded back. Finally, the yelling stopped. And I look up, and there's Jeffrey leaning on my desk, Jeffrey Katzenberg. He says, so Philo, what are you doing for lunch today? I said, well, I expect I'm eating. How about you? He says, no, you're not. I said, okay. What's up? He says, I need you to. I said, oh, I'll bet it's the seashells, pasties. Very good. He says, we're making white bread here. We can't have that. And I said, yeah, I'll come up with something. And he says, that's great. And please have it after lunch. And then you can go eat. I said, that's great. So I did 3 drawings of her turning like this with her hands up. I even did a little clasp, which you never see in the movie, but it's there in case anyone needed it. And he approved it right away. And I tried not to make it look like a bullseye where the lines were meeting. Instead, you try to do that trick to avoid tangents in drawings where you do things slightly off on each side so they're not connecting and just continuing. That makes a bullseye. So
Right.
you don't want your eyes to go right there.
Yeah.
The chest area is sensitive.
It
So
is.
so he approved it, and we just kept going on. But firstly, don't tell Jeffrey Katzenberg no.
Right.
Secondly, what saved our lives was making her hair suggest. In fact, all of their hair underwater suggests that there was a current, and not the chest area. So
Right.
that saved our lives.
Much better idea to do it with the hair, I think.
To put it delicately.
Yes. Speaking of Ariel, Johnny would like to know, what is your favorite memory with Jodi Benson, the voice of Ariel?
Taking her out or meeting her for barbecue.
I love this story.
No, really, watching her record was a lot of fun because she was still recording some of the music when I got there, and to feel like she was in her underwater grotto, she had them turn the lights down in the recording studio. Nobody had ever asked to do that before, but she that was like the extent of her method acting, I guess. But she wanted to be placed in the mood. She wanted to feel like she was underwater and in her grotto, in the alien's grotto. And I think it actually helped her performance. She, after every take, she kept saying, "I think I was flat on that one," and we said, "No, my dear, you weren't." But she was such a joy. She's just starting out. Basically, she just done Smile on stage with Howard and Alan, and they had written the show Smile based on the movie from the '70s with Barbara Feldon and various other people. It was a very funny movie. So they made a musical of it, as well as Little Shop of Horrors, of course, and things they were known for, their early work. And she met her husband, Ray Benson, through a show they were both in. Ray told me all about it one time, took me aside and told me all about the show. Said it was called I Can Hear America Singing, and it's kind of a standard show that people do all over the country. One of those standard things that people do on stage. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's so fun. I actually had the pleasure of meeting her when I was signing books at New York Comic Con last fall, and she is just the most delightful woman. I just love her.
She is a love, yeah.
She is. We've got lots and lots of questions coming in. We're going to get to as many as possible, but before we go any further, I do have a little surprise that I want to share. Our webcomic authors got together and created a collection of mashup artwork to honor your work, and we want to share that with our audience right now. So we are going to pull these up. I am so excited for this. Let me take my screen down for a moment. There we go. And let's take a look at these. So our artists created your characters in their settings, and we're just going to go ahead and take a look at these. I was so inspired when I saw these, and I thought they were a great representation because a lot of your work right now is mashup as well. You like to take characters and combine them, and so put their settings, their stories with your characters, and I just love this.
I currently have Aurora and Ariel and Mrs. Potts having tea together on my.
I saw that on your Facebook page.
So if anyone wants to see that, just go to Philo Barnhart Art.
Yes. Oh goodness. Isn't that pretty?
I like the different colored lines.
Right?
Yeah.
We got a lot of really great art from our amazing authors. And I'm so glad that we could.
You know who Peter Max is, right? He was artist in the 60s. He did a lot of psychedelic characters. And people, he designed the Yellow Submarine film, but actually that was Heinz Edelman, who was his contemporary in Germany. And Heinz, then I think he was in England, and he designed all the characters and the settings, the way the film would look. A lot of people thought that was Peter Max, but that was Heinz Edelman. And if you look at some of his work, you'll see that he made rainbow lines. His lines were rainbow, and then the colors inside were like day glow, which was very big back then. I had a room full of blacklight posters. But those look terrific, folks. Those look really great. Yeah.
They wanted to send all of their well wishes to you, and they wanted to honor your work. So I'm really glad we could surprise you with this today. Jumping back into our questions, Jenna wants to know, do you have any advice for people who want to get into animation?
Well, it's changed in that it's done digitally now, but I think it's still great to learn it by hand and do it on paper to start, because you can learn a lot more about how your characters should move and behave, and not just the way they move and behave, but the timing of those movements. There's all kinds of timing. The late Richard Williams, who was a good friend, and just passed away a year or two ago. Everyone misses him so much, but he wrote like our Bible that people are still using, and it can be applied to all kinds of animation. He brought it into the digital age as well, but he gives all kinds of timing charts for moving your characters about and getting the kind of reactions you want out of them, and so on. And there's still nothing to beat keeping a mirror by your desk and making faces in it and um, drawing what you see as your character in that face. They've done it for years. They started doing that at Disney. Even the TV cartoon studios do that. But therefore you're putting a little of yourself into your character, literally. But no matter how you do it, just learn good timing, because that is everything. And
Yeah.
there's no such thing as even timing on a movement, because that's kind of boring. That's like watching a robot move around. So everything moves in arcs
Yeah.
and not parallel lines. So that's all stuff to consider. So if you can get in a school that has an animation department, by all means, study it on paper first. And you can shoot things digitally now. It takes like no time at all. And you can learn how to do pose tests, which is where you hold one drawing until you're ready to move the character again. So you can hold it up to 8 or 16 times if you want before you go to the next drawing. And it just gives you a sense for how the entire scene is going to flow. So people may do just 3 to 5 to 9 poses in a huge scene just to break it down. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Rosie's in the comments and she says, what is your favorite behind the scenes moment from working on Beauty and the Beast? Because this movie was everything to her as a little girl.
Oh gosh, there were a lot, but again, it's watching the people, the videos of them recording their parts. Angela Lansbury was my particular favorite.
I adore her.
Even though you wouldn't ordinarily see her, right? She's just doing her voice, but she would, be into it, and
Yeah.
could have played it on the screen. But um, it was just so much fun to watch them, do these voices. Sometimes they would come out with a voice that you think that's coming out of them. And they have a whole stable of people that do all the secondary voices, like the villagers and so on. And my friend Mickey McGowan was one of those people, and she's featured in Aladdin as well. Uh, she's the one that sings, "Still, I think he's rather tasty." that's my friend Mickey. She loved doing that. But
Amazing.
watching these people do the voices it really gives us impetus for giving our own performance of the characters. Uh, oh my God, I'm blanking out. This is old age. The gentleman with Lumiere's voice, so wonderful.
Oh,
I had
yes.
no idea he could sing. I'd seen him in Dirty Dancing as Jennifer Grey's father. Oh,
Really?
why am I blanking? This is terrible. I know who he is. Old age folks, sorry.
It
Anyway, you know
happens.
who I am.
Yeah.
The man who did Lumiere.
Sure.
Wonderful, wonderful guy. Um, Watching them film the dancers was fun for the Beauty and the Beast song, um, the second half of the film. Um, we didn't have a lot of reference models for that that film. We did a lot more
Jerry Orbach.
filmic reference. Jerry Orbach, thank you.
I looked it up.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful performer. He was so great as her father in that movie, Dirty Dancing. But that that footage I remember really well, and it had a grid over it. We did a lot more filming of people performing on Mermaid than we did on Beauty and the Beast, I believe. But with a dance, it's hard to get those proportions right when people are turning and
Right.
interacting with each other. So on down the line through history, they've had to film people actually dancing for Prince Philip and Princess Aurora and so on. Certainly for Snow White. So, that's that's always a fun to see that footage, especially years later when somebody brings it out of the archive and, oh yes. Yeah, it's usually black and white too.
Yeah. Oh, I love all the behind the scenes. And everybody is loving it in the comments. Tam Sharky Nerd would like to know, where did you go to animation school?
I never really did, because there were no animation schools that were widespread at the time I was interested, because there wasn't any calling for that kind of thing yet. Usually the studios were training their own people. But you had to have a good, solid background in drawing and a sensibility about drafting things in general. So if you went to apply at any of these places. So that first job I was telling you I got in 77, I was studying 2 nights a week uh, for maybe 3 months or so. At Hanna-Barbera, the opportunity came up to learn how to in-between, which was the entry level of the business back then. Those are the people that put the drawings between the extremes, the extreme poses of the characters. And you have to learn how to follow a timing chart, which is drawn up on the side. And again, with the timing, you have to learn how to do timing. And you have to learn how to read the exposure sheet. So that's what we were studying 2 nights a week, and they hired all 30 of us out of there. So that's the way we did it back then. There were some people that joined us at the time from Cal Arts, which was being run by Disney, still is, in Valencia, California. That was the one animation school I can remember that was in existence, 77. And a whole bunch of people came from Canada. They were on break from Nelvana Nation. It's a wonderful studio in Canada, or I don't know if they're still going. I hope they are. I think they've gone digital. But they did all kinds of wonderful things, like Rock and Rule was their movie in, I think, 82 or 3 when we were doing NIMH. They did a lot of holiday specials, like Please Don't Eat the Planet, Romeo and Juliet for Valentine's Day, not Halloween, Philo. They did a Halloween one called Devil and Daniel Mouse. I believe that was their first one. It was so fun. But on hiatus, they came to Hanna-Barbera. And so they came from Canada. And I got to know them, that they went back to Canada to work on things, including Rock and Rule. And I believe that's where some of them stayed. A lot of them came back, like Roger Allers and Anna Maria Bardwell. And my friend John Celestri, who was actually American, but he went out there to work for several years. But you just keep meeting all these great people, and it just builds and builds and builds. So that was the start. And of course, by the time I got to Bluths, I learned a lot from them, because they were Disney trained. And when they left, they took all that information, plus the stuff that they learned doing their own film, which was considerable. They brought back production values that had been lost since Sleeping Beauty.
Right.
Brought all that back with NIMH, and I was the lucky recipient of all that knowledge. So
always a good thing.
Yeah, but now you can go to most schools, most of the major ones, and they will have some kind of animation department. My advice would be to just have a good idea of how things really behave. And you can show that by doing gesture drawings they don't have to look like much of anything. They can be, stick figures or people with just a little bit of flesh or clothing on them. Show that you have an understanding of how things move. Animals, if you like. People are good, always. But some people just excelled at doing animals. Like Russ Edmonds on Mermaid did Max the dog. And just a terrific job, because when he hit the water, think about how hard it is to make something look like it's wet and draggy. Yeah. He made that look like a big, wet dog.
He did.
That's remarkable what he did. And he was just a young guy then. Most of us were.
Yeah.
Well, I was a bit older than Russ, but you know what I mean.
I do.
Anyway, I'm probably digressing, but yeah, get some life drawing in. Um, Even if you're going into digital, it's good to know how things are put together. It's good to know how to take simple shapes and put them together. In fact, that will help you a lot on digital because that's all dealing with shapes and
Yeah.
manipulating. Because you're turning them into like little stop motion animation puppets, literally, but they are flat digital creations that look dimensional. So yeah, that's probably the closest that comes to stop motion animation puppets is the digital stuff
That's
because
true.
it's dimensional. It appears dimensional. And you've got people using the hybrid qualities of each now. They put them, blended them together. Leica is a good example of that with Paranorman and that funny one they did about the pirates. They weren't looking for treasure; they were looking for food. There was a monkey that kept holding up cue cards on the end, wanted to say something. Funny movie. Um, uh, Aardman has even mixed things up with their claymation with some CG. Um, the Wallace and Gromit Rear Rabbit film, for example. So, and I love seeing that the actual physical stuff being mixed with some CG, imagery.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm all for hybrid. Yeah.
I love it. Now, before we move forward with more questions, we do have a tradition here at Toon Ladies. Every single week when we have our talk show, we ask our fans to get their phones ready. And if you're watching us on your phone, you're about to take a screenshot. And if you're watching us on a laptop, you're about to take a picture of your laptop. Philo and I are going to look at our cameras and smile for 3 seconds. And we want you to take a picture to put it out on social media. So are you ready, Philo? Let's pose for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right, friends, we want you to take that picture and get it over on social media. Make sure you're tagging us in those and giving us a shout out so you're bringing your friends over to the party. We don't come to the party alone. Get your friends, get them here, and let's have fun as we continue to ask Philo questions. Make sure you are dropping those questions over in our chat box right now. And make sure you leave some comment love down below as well, because that tells YouTube we're doing something cool, and YouTube shares it with even more people. So let's dive in and let's ask some more questions. Devin Keto would like to know which artist or artists were your biggest influence?
Oh, there's been so many, but and some of them were actually our family friends. I met these people through my parents at Disney. Mark Davis, Milt Kahl, who were two fantastic animators. Frank, Thomas, and Ollie Johnston. They watched me grow up, and of course their own children too. But I would always visit the studio, and they would always rope me in. If you were a child, you were in danger because they would rope you into their room and run their latest footage on Moviola. So I got to see a lot of rough pencil tests, and maybe a little color, but mostly it was their rough tests, and they would review them on their own Moviola in their own room, and not only the animators but also the painters there. Ivan Durrell, who designed Sleeping Beauty, for example, he stylized that entire production. Decided to use mid-century idioms, art idioms, mixed with medieval tapestries, and the result really worked well. They never did that style again because it took them a total of 10 years to get the thing made.
Right.
Because it was so exacting, and they had to do things over and over and over again. And Walt, in the meantime, was busy with Disneyland, so he wasn't around for a lot of that. And of course, they went over budget. And he decided then and there the killing cost. Film was a success, by the way, but the killing cost of doing all the hand inking and all the retakes and all just the painstaking stuff that almost anal retentive, if you will, pardon the expression, drawing style, was very taxing financially and creatively. So he said, we won't be doing that kind of thing again. No more cash shadows under characters. No more hand inking. We've got the Xerox ready to go now. In fact, there's a couple Xerox scenes in Sleeping Beauty, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
Mostly the crowds in the background are Xeroxed. The lines were so clean that you don't even notice that. The characters in the foreground were inked by hand. The characters in the background, there were so many of them, they just decided to Xerox them. Aurora walking through the forest singing, swinging her basket, that was animated full size, Xeroxed down, and
oh,
painted that way.
wow.
You couldn't tell the difference. But
Nice.
that was a big multiplane shot with all the tree limbs in the foreground.
Right.
Just beautifully timed out and everything. But he said, "Yeah, no more of that." So that's precisely what Don Bluth wanted to bring back in the qualities of Secret of NIMH. And they started with Banjo the Woodpile Cat. But the studio, even then, when they left, was not interested in bringing that stuff back. They were still listening to Walt, even though he'd been gone for so long. So they said, "Oh no, we're still going to do it, Xerox." And, so NIMH looked completely different from anything that had come out for a
Sure.
while. At the
Yeah.
time, we were returning that stuff and finding easier ways to do it, too. Optical ways to do a lot of what we did. So they used to have this stuff called transpaint to make shadows. Instead, we found a way to paint the shadows solid black, shoot them on another pass on the same piece of film with the character at a percentage, and so that makes them look like they're see-through. So they look like a shadow underneath the character.
Right.
Little tricks like that. And I never would have thought of that before. But we did some exposure work on Star Trek before I got to Don Bluth. But not to the degree we did it actually on the characters or around the characters for them. That was the first time I ever learned how to do that.
And I
Um,
know in
I'm
NIMH,
trying to remember the original question. Yeah.
I know.
Trying to remember the original question. Now I've digressed so much. Oh, the influences.
Yes.
The influences, yeah. Well, Ivan was definitely up there. My mother adored him. She she would tease him and say, "It's Earls by Ivan de Oil." Like oil paints.
Yeah.
Oils by Ivan Earl. Yeah,
That's so funny.
Ivan de Oil. So yeah, those people came to dinner at our house occasionally, and I always got to see them at the studio. They're all in different parts of the building, but also Mary Blair, who went on to be one of the proponents of Walt Disney Imagineering, which was formerly called WED Enterprises, when they started building Disneyland and the other theme parks. And she contributed so much design work to those, as well as before that, all the movies with Song of the South. Just tons of things in the 40s, the package films, and Cinderella, Peter Pan. She did so much design work. And it wasn't a usual job for women at the studio. So
Right.
she was a pioneer. And she was a real character. Um, Mark Davis kind of patterned Cruella after her.
Really?
Mary was much more attractive and friendly than Cruella. But in the 60s, at the time they were making Dalmatians, she had almost two-tone hair, and it was a page boy flip. And she would wear a body stocking, or not a body, leotard, a black leotard, a poncho, and some hip boots, and that was it.
Wow.
Some groovy boots. So she was very hip and mod.
Yeah.
So, I'm putting that into Cruella.
That's
Well,
amazing.
he gave her a skirt and long, floppy, high heel shoes, but
Yes.
you could see where Mary, especially the cigarette holder that went on for a mile,
Yeah.
that was Mary's thing. She had a cigarette holder.
Wow. That's
Yeah. And here's something interesting. Mary Wicks, who did one of the voices of the gargoyles in Hunchback of Notre Dame. And she also played a nun in Sister Act.
really
We froze in winter. Those were nuns. That's Mary. She played the part of Cruella for Mark on film.
wow. I
Yeah.
learn something new every single time I talk to you. I love this.
I believe, along with Helene Stanley, who played Anita.
Okay.
Conversation when you first meet her, and she's putting out her cigarette on the cupcake or whatever it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's really
Again,
cool.
another great character. My dad loved laying out that film because he got to do the scene of her in the bed with her curlers.
Oh,
Got to lay that scene out. Pretty much all of her home, he got to
wow.
lay out. And all those snow scenes, a lot of them were done by my dad. So
Wow.
lay out is the background, showing the background, how it's actually going to be,
Yeah.
and then also showing where the characters are going to be placed in there. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
and you'll do a series of poses showing the animator. Okay, they're going to be over here now. They're going to be over here now, and then the animator can take that and
Right.
plot out, give a performance.
Wow.
So
So now
so
which
Henry was my other one. So there were several of them.
yeah. So now which films did your parents work on? Because I talk to you about yours all the time, but I keep learning that your parents worked on different ones.
Well, my mom was there when they were doing all the war effort things, starting in '42, and she was actually going to be in the movies. She actually is in one called 17 with Jackie Cooper,
Oh.
and if I'm not mistaken, Judy Garland actually too.
Oh. Wow.
But in 1939, when she was 17, she entered a beauty contest in Salt Lake City, Utah, where she grew up, and she she won, and it brought her to Hollywood, and she got to be in the movie. Yeah, spend
Wow.
some time with Jackie Cooper. I have pictures back in storage in California. Still want to get my things eventually. It's been so many years.
Sure.
Um, Pictures of her dancing with Gene Kelly at a nightclub. And
Wow.
having dinner with him at Ciro's, and then Jackie Cooper kissing her goodbye when she's getting on the train to go back to Utah.
Oh.
She came back in '42 and decided, oh, no, I don't really want to be in the movies, but I'm going to take my watercolors over to Disney and see what they think of them.
Yeah.
Well, in those days, it wasn't a chauvinistic thing. It was just a sign of the times, I guess. Um, if you were talented and you were a painter, unlike someone like Mary Blair, for example, um, Walt just adored her. But you got relegated to ink and paint. It didn't matter how talented you were. If you were female, that's usually where you went. I
Right.
don't know if he thought the temperament was better suited to ladies for that kind of thing. There are now men that do that work, but I'm digressing. But uh, so they hired her, and she started doing things for the war effort that were not really animation. Walt put everyone together or to work doing charts that showed the silhouettes of warcraft, uh, both on the sea and on land, so that our people in the field could see which vehicles or you know craft were
Right.
friendly or not so friendly.
Important to know.
So she ended up doing submarine silhouettes and battleship silhouettes right on celluloid, and a lot of those got printed up and sent out to our people actually, out on the sea and so on, so they could identify things just by the way they were shaped.
Right.
Yeah, so that was part of what she did, and so many things. They designed shields for aircraft and things.
Wow.
Um, you know, anything creative that went into World War II might have come out of Disney. There's a wonderful book called Disney Don's Dog Tags.
Oh.
It's an old book now, but I think you can still find it. But it's all about what they did in those days. And of course, they made Victory Through Air Power and Der Fuhrer's Face with Donald Duck.
Mm-hmm.
They may seem a little racist now, but they were pretty, pretty hysterical in a lot of ways. But they were all, propaganda to get people fired up about the war and the war effort.
Right.
Now, her last film was Song of the South. She did some campaign on that, and that was around 1947. So I was pregnant with my first brother, Rio. And so she left to start raising our family, and my dad kept going. So.
And what projects did your dad work on? Because you've mentioned a couple, but what were his?
Next after that would have been Cinderella. However, while my mom was starting our family, my dad took a sabbatical and went to New York to study at Traphagen School of Fashion for a little while in 1949. And he'd done some short films with Disney too before that. They were heading into goofy shorts. A lot of those goofy shorts my dad worked on with Jack Kinney, who directed a lot of them. And just had a ball with that character for years, all through the 50s. But he studied fashion for a while, how clothes were actually put together and, cut and put together, fabricated. So when he got back, Mark Davis says, I want Dale on Cinderella, especially when she's in the ball gown, because he knows how the garments should go together and how it should flow and move. I thought, way to go, Dad.
That was smart.
I thought that was hysterical, but he ended up getting to do the one where her tatters reassemble, and then she kind of comes up like
he did that.
She comes down again, and they covered it with sparkles, so you don't actually see too much of the trans. But that scene, I went down to the archive and borrowed it, and took it up to my room when we were making Cauldron. And I rolled that thing, and I said, wow, even rolling it, I can't see how in the world it was. But you could see her hair starting to move up into the bun and everything.
Yeah.
But it was just so subtly, beautifully done. It's practically a lost art. You can't know how they did it because you can't get inside their head. But it was really amazing. But I'm digressing again.
No, keep going. Right, I love this.
Right after that, it was on to Alice in Wonderland in 1951. My mother still wasn't back. She was busy raising family. And my other brother was born in 1950, Roberly. And so 1951 came, and they did Alice. And he was still key assistant then. He hadn't moved into layout yet. Okay. Then there was Peter Pan, I believe.
Okay.
1953, and everything dovetailed, just like it does now.
Yeah.
But they were just cranking them out one after the other.
Sure.
But they were dovetailing into each other. So when the staff was done with one thing, they would just, migrate on to the next one.
Right.
And draw the characters and get busy.
Sure.
So Peter Pan, he really enjoyed doing that because he was key cleanup on Captain Hook.
Oh, that must be fun.
Two of them. And that's pretty much all he did, I believe, was Hook and Smee.
Wow.
That was enough. Right. There was a lot of fun with him. But I love that character still because he's beautifully designed.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Dad said he cleaned up that scene of him mulling over what to do with Pan. He's got the twin cigarette holder.
Yes.
Two the cigars in it.
Uh-huh.
And twisting it around. He did that with top light only. He didn't use any bottom light.
Oh.
So the shapes moving, not the lines between the lines, which is what we need to do sometimes now because things get so involved. But to actually see, you can see them better if you're top lighting your artwork and flipping it. And, but I said, that's remarkable because they were flawless.
Yeah.
Of course, somebody else inks them. So there is a step of translation, which a lot of people were kind of angry about because some of the nuances got lost from the animation drawings to the inking. There's no getting around that.
Right.
That's why Xerox was so welcome in the late 50s, early 60s. But from Peter Pan, it was Lady and the Tramp, and then he got his chance to be a layout artist. He also did animation keying on that too. And again, um, this was the first widescreen film for them, for animated. So it was a little labor intensive because of that. They had to fill the
Yeah.
screen, the backgrounds, and the characters. So, and they had to be very careful about how they looked. He didn't want things to jitter unnecessarily.
Right.
That's the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. But they tried their best to get around that. It's a charming film. It looks beautiful. So that was their first VistaVision, widescreen 70 millimeter movie, and then right after that was going into production for about. Some people already started, but some people started in '54, I believe, actually, on Sleeping Beauties. There was a total of 10 years, start to finish, for
Yeah.
Sleeping Beauty.
Sure.
In the meantime, Bob Thomas wrote his book, The Art of Animation, the first go round. He subsequently rewrote it in the 90s when Beauty and the Beast was new,
Okay.
using Beauty and the Beast instead of Sleeping Beauty. But the careful searcher will find the original Sleeping Beauty book. I got one for like $300. It was in good shape. I don't know where my copy is right now. It's here with me in Illinois, but I made sure I brought it with me. It's precious.
Oh yeah,
But
for sure.
that was long before even Frank and Ollie's book, The Illusion of Life, which is another one of our Bibles. It's packed with beautiful information about how they made all those early films and how they innovated and learned while they did it. But so that book was done along with production. So a lot of the drawings and things you see in the book never made it into the movie. They show how a movie is built, a piece at a time. Just like building a building, a piece at a brick at a time. So along that time, I was born, 1957. 2 years left for him to make Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
And I was 2 years old when it came out. I was too young to go see it. It would have terrified me, I'm sure.
Yes.
I saw it on a re-release many years later with my dad. It was great. But then, of course, there was 101 Dalmatians, which was the introduction of the Xerox process.
Yeah. Okay.
No more shadows under characters, and no more special effects. Those things. Sword in the Stone, I believe, was next. Same thing, Xerox. But beautiful drafting, because they learned a lot about, especially Milt Kahl. He was a main proponent of the way things were drafted and how the characters would look. And they were very stylized, angular, and very pleasing. Had a lot of appeal. Any kind of a time you start an animation, you want to go for the appeal as much as possible. Make that character appealing for your audience. And they certainly did that. Sword in the Stone, then, if I'm not mistaken, it was Jungle Book.
Okay.
And of course, that was Walt's last personally supervised movie.
Right.
Passed away in, I believe it was December of '66, and the movie came out after that. He never got to see it finished. I think he would have been very proud of it, though. It was beautiful and it was fun. And they were moving into a new era of the voice actors heavily influencing the way the characters would look and behave. So they started to film them back then. doing their part in front of a microphone, and that was in between all the motion pictures. Of course, he did the Goofy shorts, a
Right.
lot of one-off films like "It's Tough to Be a Bird," "Lambert the Sheepish Lion."
I remember that.
So many little films. They were wonderful. It's
Yes.
just little shorts that would show with the main Disney features in the theater. So the one about the little elephant that was like 3 inches, Goliath Junior or whatever it was called.
Oh.
Yeah, and one called a Symposium of Popular Songs, I believe, which had some stop motion in it as well as flat animation. It was Ludwig von Drake,
Yes. Yes.
who was voiced by Paul Frees. Yeah, he was so fun. And along the way, he got to work on things for Disneyland too. In fact, both my mother and father got roped into doing some things on Disneyland. They actually
Really?
went down with many, many staff members, and it was just hours before the park would open in July that first time, and they finished painting and doing the final details. Those murals that are outside the dark rides, for example, they had a lot to do with finishing those things.
Wow.
Then on opening day, they were afraid that not that many people were going to be there. Wrong, wrong.
Wrong.
So there was my mother and father at opposite ends of the park, pretending to be fill-in visitors. I think I actually saw her in one of those documentary films,
Oh,
crossing the street on Main Street. Yeah,
oh, that's so
it
funny.
was her. Yeah, I definitely saw her in The Reluctant Dragon, walking by with a pile of cells in her hands. Um, and that was when the film turned to color. It starts in black and white and goes to color when they go to ink and paint, of course. Such a fun movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they got to work on Disneyland, and of course, when I was old enough, they started taking me, all of us, my adopted sister and my two brothers and myself. And we all went to Disneyland.
Which I'm so jealous of.
Yeah, but then when I started going to the beach with my family, I started falling in love with mermaids and undersea things.
Well, that worked out well for you, didn't it?
That's around age 7, yeah. So one really fun thing for me was getting to be in Mary Poppins with my father, flying a kite at the end of the movie. Because
I was going to ask you about that. I love this. So
I was for the part of Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh,
Yeah.
and the Honey Tree, the first one. I think that was the Honey Tree, the first one. In '64 is when it came out. Well, in '62 or '3, I auditioned. My dad was working with me every night. He had a woolen sock reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he had me recite lines from the book and try to give it my best British accent. And so he was coaching me on how to do a British accent and all. And ultimately, I think I had a better one down than Bruce Reitherman, who got the part. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, I got to read with Sterling Holloway, who was set to play Pooh. And I was just dazzled because I already knew who he was from, from Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat, and various other characters that he did he actually did the voice of the in Dumbo. He did the voice of I believe the stork. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you know? This is Jumbo. That was him. So he'd been around. He was a stock Disney kind of guy.
Sure.
He did a wonderful Kaa in Jungle Book. So funny.
Yeah.
Trust in me, just in me. This is going to slow down my slithering. So I got to read with him, and he was such a character.
Wow.
And I met briefly with Walt Disney, put his arm around me and says, "Now, this is how I see Christopher Robin." So he told me, give me some final tips. And Bruce Reitherman and I were runner-ups out of 150 little boys. So I was very proud that I had made it that far.
Oh, absolutely.
Walt found out I had lost the part because I lost it to the director's son. Little nepotism. He felt kind of bad because he was kind of hoping. I guess he was kind of hoping I would get it.
Yeah.
He thought I had a better British accent too. Anyway, he says, "Dale, how would you and Philo like to be extras in the sequence that you're storyboarding, which is Let's Go Fly Kite?" Dad was working on that at the time, and on Pooh as well. So he was working double duty. And he says, "I don't know. I'll ask him, but I think he might bounce off the walls, So away went the tears, and I was all excited. We got fitted for our little Edwardian costumes.
Yes.
The buildings are still there. I don't think they're used for wardrobe anymore. Maybe they are. But so it didn't take them long to find a costume for me. It was a little brown cap and brown jacket and some white stockings and some brown knickers and some brown shoes. And they gave Dad a bowler hat and a black suit, and then he waxed up his mustache like they did
Yes.
with the actual mustache, and they'd curl it up. Yeah, some people still do that. I could probably do it now, but it's all disheveled and unstarred. But so there we are. We're out of focus, but we're there. We're kind of like in the middle of the screen when the family comes out the door the first time. And they showed us one more time. We didn't know actually where we were going to show up because they did so many takes.
Right.
Done over 3 days, I think. And so they did a lot of coverage, and then that allowed the director to cut it together.
Right.
The way ultimately you see it now. So
Yeah. Which is so much fun. You've had such an amazing history with everything that you're doing. We've got a couple more questions I do want to get to before we let you go today. Mushmallow Comics says, "I had no idea that studios worked on the same movies at the same time. I don't know why I thought they would work on separate projects, but she's loving that she is learning they've worked on multiple projects." Devin Keto is in the comments, and she says, "What is your favorite technological advancement in animation? I'm personally fascinated by the use of multi-plane camera for backgrounds."
Mm-hmm. Well, that at the time that was new. That was certainly a great boon because they could track through a scene and have things actually appear to be natural instead of everything moving towards you at one time. They could break up the levels and keep like the moon or the sun way back there where it belonged. And one of the most beautiful examples of multiplane is that opening of Bambi.
Yes.
Which was done before my parents got there. That was actually but they missed doing that one. But what a shot. I mean, just the logistics of planning the thing and then getting it all painted. Most of these things were painted on panes of glass that were like 8 feet long or more, 8 to 10 feet long, and they had nothing but trees on them. And so you could see through the glass and you could just see the artwork of the trees. Your eye would retain that. So, but more recently, we were able to do that kind of effect with the computer. So while we were still doing the hand-drawn, that was a great innovation because not only could we now color the characters without having to mix the paint and deal with all that headache, painting the characters was a snap now.
Right.
We started using it on Oliver and Company, and then there's a lot of it in Mermaid too. There's a little bit of computer color, but it's still mostly painted by hand. It was the last one to be painted by hand, as a matter of fact. Rescuers Down Under was done in computer color. So we were able to use, for the first time, that multiplane effect using just the computer. So we laid everything out flat, and the computer would break it up. And, just draw the layers flat, and the computer would time it out and move things forward. So,
Nice.
yeah.
That's awesome. Damn Sharky Nerd is in the comments. Damn Sharky Nerd is in the comments, and she says, of all of the characters that you helped to create, which one do you identify the most with?
Ursula.
I knew that was going to be the answer. Okay, now tell us why.
She got a raw deal. I'm sorry, she got a raw deal. She just wanted to rule the world.
She did. That's all she wanted.
At the very least, she just wanted to rule the ocean. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give the woman a little power.
I used to crack my friend Lou Della Rosa up all the time when we were finishing the film because we knew what the soundtrack sounded like. So I would crack him up because I would always say her line slowed down from the end. The waves obey my every whim. So we shared a room at the end of production, and both of us moved to Florida to open the studio out there just after the movie was completed. And we had a wonderful wrap party all to ourselves for Mermaid while they were having one in California. So we had two different parties. But we just laughed the day away. You know, it made the day go so much better. He was keying Triton and I was keying Ariel by then, exclusively. That's where we ended up. So some wiseacre put a sign on our door that said, "Father-daughter team within, knock loudly, please."
Oh, goodness.
Meaning the two of us, so people would usually read that and they would enter laughing, you know. And the animators, as you know, are great practical jokers. They were always sneaking funny things into their dailies every week, you know, the footage.
Yeah.
And just all manner of craziness. They used to have gorilla hunts where they would dress Sean Keller up as a gorilla, with a mask and a furry suit, and he'd go hide somewhere in the studio, and then they'd send the younger animators out with a pole and some rope to go find him. And when they found him, they hog-tied him to the pole and paraded him through the studio, and people would come and throw confetti in the air. Just craziness. But you needed that to pull off steam because we were expected to get the movie done in 18 months, which is a year and a half.
Yeah.
Compared to 3 and 4 years, which we'd had all through Walt's time.
Right.
And later. But what fun. You know, I don't think they do that kind of thing anymore. That was strictly our era. But that's why the movies came out so fun, because we had fun.
Absolutely.
We were totally off the wall, and they loved us to be as zany as we wanted to be. Made the work better.
I love that they gave you that freedom.
We also had Moose Day, where everyone moosed their hair up into designs. And,
Please tell me that somewhere.
Yeah, I finished my hair, and then Dennis Park, our accountant, came out, and he's of Asian descent, so he has this perfectly straight hair, you know. He says, "Philo, could you help me? I want to participate too, but I'm just not that creative." And I said, "Of course, come on. I have my hair dryer and everything." So I made a hatchet shape out of his hair. that nice straight Asian hair. Like he had a hatchet blade on top.
That's so funny.
He was thrilled he got to participate with the rest of us. Crazy. And Russ Edmonds, who had done Max the dog, I told you earlier, carefully spiked his. He looked like one of those seed pods that has the spikes coming off.
Oh, gosh.
He threw green dye on there, so he looked like one of those pods all day.
Wow.
Just so much fun, and our Halloweens were off the chart.
Oh, I imagine so.
Yeah. I made costumes for a couple of the people that were emceeing the costume show. So, yeah, Bill Matthews, I made him up as Henry VIII. And he made up super Henry VIII. He was like his size.
Wow.
6 feet, and he was a big guy, you know. So I had to measure him 3 times to make sure I was, you know, okay. So I was very nervous cutting the cloth for that one, but it came out fine. And, People still remember it to this day. So,
Well, I imagine so.
yeah, there's a picture of it floating around here somewhere, maybe even on the internet.
I was going to say, you're going to have to pull some of these old photos out and put them on your Facebook for me to see later.
Well, if I can find them, I will. Sometimes I do put the old things up. I have a picture
I know. I love
Jodi
them.
and I have a picture of Jodi and I premiere week in Florida that
I think I saw that.
my friend Richard Green took when we were all working in Florida. That's when we had our party too, and we had a ball.
Yeah.
And, got to see Glenn Keane again. Glenn came and saw me, and that was the last time. Unfortunately, I got to see Howard Ashman. He still looked fine then, but we lost him. You know, by the time we had lost him.
Yeah.
To yet one of those other insidious pandemic things that happened to the eyes. Yeah.
But you do have the best pictures that you put out on Facebook. I love being friends with you because I see and learn so much just from your feed.
Well, I'm glad that it works for you.
Oh, it makes me so happy. It just makes my day when I see your posts.
Well, I've got the sun coming up.
I see.
Big timing.
I see. It was good timing because we're wrapping it up right now. Everyone is loving your stories in the comments. Everyone is giving all the love. They're laughing, saying OMG. And they love, love, love all of your answers. Friends, now is the time to start thanking Philo as we're wrapping up. Don't go anywhere because I need to tell you about a real...
I got a million of them.
Yes. I have some really big news for you, friends. I'm going to share in just a minute. But before we say goodbye, Philo, I do need to ask, where can everyone find you online to hang out after?
Well, you can go to a site called Silver Phoenix, all one word. It's like the phoenix bird and the color silver. Silverphoenix.net. And that is our little group of artists out here. We're like a little cottage industry headed by Charles D. Moisant, who befriended me in 2013. We've been friends ever since. And he's the reason I'm here in Chicago now and not Wisconsin and Milwaukee. So I'm thriving here. Or at least I was until the pandemic. But we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
We'll get back to it hopefully soon. But the other thing is we're represented on Facebook by Whispers from the Void, which is the comic book that I'm doing with Charles. Also, we are represented as Silver Phoenix Entertainment on Facebook. So we have a Facebook presence there. And I also have my own art page, which anyone can go to. You don't have to befriend me or anything. Anyone can go to it. It's just Philo Barnhart Art.
Yes, and he puts all sorts of pictures and stories there too. So head over to Facebook, make sure you give it a like. And before I let you go, I just want to read some of these comments to you. So Rosie says, come back. Thank you, Philo. You are awesome. She's loving on your stories. Casey says, thank you for sharing. Devin says, thank you for all of the amazing stories. Mushmallow says, yes, come back with more stories sometime soon. Priscilla says, thank you for coming and talking about your career. And so much love going on in the comments right now. I can't wait to have you back, Philo. I get to hang out with you every now and again on my live broadcasts, but now we've got the
This is what makes me live, so thank you all so much.
We're going to get you back again in the next couple months because I feel like we just need to have more stories from you. We're just going to sit down for an hour and talk.
There is so much stuff going on. You wouldn't believe some of the things.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to have you back on, friend. It has been an absolute delight. We will see you again soon. Any parting thoughts before we go?
Just be good and be safe for the moment, and let's get through this thing.
Yes. Well, thank you, friend. I will see you backstage in just a minute. Friends, before we let you go, I got a couple things you need to know about, because if you enjoyed today's Disney Animator Spotlight with Philo Barnhart, I have the producer of The Swan Princess coming on in 1 month. This man created one of my other favorite movies from when I was a child. Selden Young is his name, and I cannot wait to introduce you to him. But before we get there, we're going to be hanging out with Miranda Munt of Muted next week. The following week, we've got May Rothschild of Brimstone and Roses. Then we're going to hang out with Jenna A. of Enjoy the Show and Mushmallows of Defect, who are actually hanging out in our comments right now. And then we're going to hang out with Selden Young. We've got some amazing people coming up on the podcast, including I may or may not be talking to Lily Dusk tonight for an interview for our newsletter. We've got all sorts of amazing things coming up on the Toon Ladies talk show, podcast, and our weekly newsletters. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, go to newsletter.toonladies.com every single Saturday. We're bringing you breaking Toon World news, an exclusive interview, and I'm giving you swag every single week. We've got amazing cell phone wallpapers coming out for you from your favorite webcomic authors. We just had one from Jenna A. We had stuff from Marshmallow. We just had something from May Rothschild. We've got Kayla Oliver of the Wolfman of Wolvershire next week. Loopy Cut the following week from Blood Inc. Then we are going to be hanging out with Lily Dusk from Midnight Poppyland. Guys, I'm bringing you all the fun, and I cannot wait for you to come hang out. Newsletter.toonladies.com. And then join us every single Sunday right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe and notification bell because we are going live with some of your favorite Toon celebrities that you do not want to miss. And our podcast drops every single Thursday everywhere podcasts are streaming. You do not want to miss all of these amazing things, plus the bonus videos and all the fun stuff happening over on our Discord and our Instagram pages. It is so much fun, and I would love to see all of you there. But for now, we have to say goodbye. So I hope you all had so much fun today. I will see you again next week as we hang out with Miranda Munt of Muted. And we've got some really cool stuff coming out on the podcast and the newsletter this week that you do not want to miss. Until then, friends, leave some comments down below, comment love down below, and I will see you in our next video. Until then, have a great day and stay inspired. Bye-bye.